Hi, everybody. Well, welcome. Thanks for joining us for the 2020 Virtual Hot Water Forum. This is ACEEE's premier conference on sustainable and energy-efficient hot water systems. I'm Chris Perry. I'm a research manager on ACEE's Buildings team. So this is my fourth year helping to organize this conference. However, it's my first time organizing a virtual conference, and actually it's ACEE's first time organizing a virtual conference. So, we're pretty much set here to be the guinea pigs. As many of you probably know, we had originally been planning to hold this conference live in person back in March in Atlanta. We went back and forth like almost every day leading up to it to figure out if we should still try and do it in person, how are things going to get. Ultimately, we decided to postpone until now, and I think in hindsight, we're all really happy that we did that, just for the safety of everybody that attends the Hot Water Forum. So because this is a virtual conference, we weren't able to keep all the presentations that we had planned for the in-person conference. And just a huge thank you to our steering committee that did the bulk of the work here, helping us take our original 28 sessions and narrow them down to the 16 sessions that we have for the virtual conference. We're really excited to share these sessions with you. We think that they represent a really diverse set of topics on hot water. And we're hoping that any presentations we weren't able to show this year, we're going to be able to show next year in person, but we'll see. So because this is ACEE's first official virtual conference, you maybe expect that we'll experience occasional glitches, maybe someone with a bad connection, trouble using the software. Just thanks in advance for your patience and understanding. We're all learning how to do this together. We're happy to report that as of this morning, we had 215 attendees. And nearly half are first-time attendees. I think one silver lining to going to a virtual conference like this is that some attendees that may not have been able to travel to Atlanta for the conference are now able to attend from homes. And so we think that's pretty great. And so a special welcome to those people. And we hope that if this is your first time and you feel like you get a lot of value out of the conference, you'll consider joining us for future Hot Water Forums. And of course, thank you to our longtime attendees that really help make this conference so fun and valuable every year. So the way that we're going to run this plenary session, I'm going to speak here for a little bit. After that, we've asked our two lead sponsors, Reem and A.O. Smith, to give welcomes. And then we will end with a panel discussion. So a little bit about the conference. This conference spans 4 days between 2 weeks. So we have today and tomorrow, and then next Tuesday and Wednesday. Each day we'll have 4 sessions with 2 being shown simultaneously, so we'll have 2 and 2. And if you are torn between 2 sessions, you really want to go to both, don't worry, we will have them all available on demand within a few days afterwards through the engagement hub, which is where you all registered for sessions and got the calendar invites. The platform that we're using right now is called On24. A couple quick things about it. It's important to know that your interface is customizable. You can adjust the screen size or add and remove features from the toolbar along the bottom. So we suggest play around with it, adjust it to meet your needs. And just like a personal observation, I've noticed that it's more effective on a large monitor. When you're trying to run the platform from a small monitor, it kind of gets like cramped. A little bit more difficult to use. So if you have 2 monitors, I suggest putting it on the larger one. The sessions for the conference will be an hour long, and we've built in some time at the end for Q&A, which you'll use through the On24 platform. But we have also made additional chat rooms available for everybody for the 20 minutes following every session, and those will be available through Zoom. So we suggest you definitely try and take advantage of those. If you have any more questions for the speakers, or you want to talk about your personal experience with that topic, your favorite tips for smoking brisket, really whatever you want. So these discussions that we have, these dialogues are what one of the things that we think make Hot Water Forum really special. And so we're trying to replicate that in-person experience you would have had at a regular Hot Water Forum in person. And just a reminder, Hot Water Forum attracts a lot of intelligent, opinionated people. We definitely see that with our discussions on emerging topics like carbon reduction goals, electrification, things like that. And as always, we encourage these discussions. We just ask that you treat your fellow conference goers with respect, even if you disagree with them. We're dealing with some interesting times right now. A lot of us are either locked in our homes or we're going to work, but we're trying to stay safe while we do it. So just be especially considerate of people right now, please. There are some ACEEE staff that we want to thank for this conference. First and foremost, I want to thank Lynn Pyle. If you've worked on hot water forum in any capacity, you know Lynn. You've probably interacted with her. She basically manages everything behind the scenes. She's handled this switch to virtual conference like a champ. And I know she also had support from Kim Williams, Becky Lanetta, and Wendy Koch. I want to thank Maxine Chicumbo and Kate Doty too. They've become experts at using this software platform. They gave a lot of trainings to our moderators and speakers, and they've been a great resource for using the platform. And then from ACEE's building team, I want to also thank Hannah Bastian and Jen Amon for stepping in to help me organize this conference. Somebody else I want to thank is our steering committee, who I mentioned previously. We have a list of everybody on our steering committee on our website. Urge you to check it out. These people do tons of great work. It wouldn't be possible without them. They give input on the sessions. They help design and then lead the sessions, and really, determine the direction of the overall conference. So they do a ton of work to make this all possible. Definitely also want to thank the ACEE's allies in our ally program. They support our research and work, and we very much appreciate that. And I want to thank our sponsors. So our two platinum sponsors, Ream and A.O. Smith, have been supporting this conference for years, and we will be hearing from them shortly. Also want to thank our silver sponsors, Bradford White, Green Power EMC, Jackson EMC, NEA, the Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance, and SoCal Gas. And so I want to walk us through some slides here about ACEEE, because this is a pretty big year for us. So just generally who we are, ACEEE, we're a nonprofit research organization with about 60 employees. We work to advance energy efficiency policies, programs, technologies, and behaviors. We get funding from different sources, but the vast majority of it comes from foundations. We were founded in 1980, so that means that this year in 2020, we are 40 years old. So happy anniversary to us. We've made a lot of progress in the past 40 years. We've helped double energy productivity and cut energy use in half. The result of all that was we helped reduce the per capita energy bill by $2,000. But this isn't nearly enough. Climate change is causing incredible harm to our planet. One of the main ways is by exacerbating extreme weather events like heat waves, droughts, and hurricanes. Most often, these events disproportionately affect low-income communities, communities of color. We need to address these climate crises with transformative change. So to do that, we've issued a call to action this year. We will rapidly and aggressively scale energy efficiency to cut greenhouse gas emissions. We will do so equitably and cost-effectively. We need to deliver results quickly, so we set ambitious goals for 2030. We will double the rate of building retrofits, improve the fuel efficiency of new vehicles by at least 20%, cut industrial emissions by a third, and make a 5-fold increase in efficiency investments in buildings occupied by low-income households. So we know that a strong scaling of energy efficiency can get us halfway to our climate goals. So we set up the Halfway There Fund, but we cannot get there without you. Please join us. So next we're going to hear from representatives from our two platinum sponsors at Ream and A.O. Smith. I also just want to mention on a personal level that we've worked with both Karen and Josh for years, and they've been extremely thoughtful and supportive of our ideas for how to continue to grow and improve this conference. They've also been really great with the shift to virtual conference this year, so we sincerely appreciate their support. And with that, I'd like to introduce Karen Myers, Vice President of Government Affairs at Ream.
So good afternoon, everyone, and I'd like to extend my welcome as well to ACEE's first virtual hot water forum. REAM is pleased to again support this important event. Before I start, I'd like to wish ACEEE a happy 40th birthday and thank you for all you do, especially around exploring ways to advance the efficiency of hot water systems. A little bit about REAM. We are a leading global brand in water heating. We have over 10,000 employees worldwide. We are a privately held company by Paloma Technologies. We do business in over 85 countries, and we only manufacture of air products, water products, and commercial refrigeration products in North America. Last year, primarily in Peru, the Netherlands, and then a couple in the US and Canada. I thought I'd spend my time during these opening remarks to really focus on what's new. And you may notice that there is a level of interconnectedness among all these trends. So I thought I'd start with the first trend that's probably the most obvious that has had an impact on the market today, and that's the COVID issue. From a hot water perspective, there have been manufacturing interruptions due to outbreaks, whether in facilities or any other service providers, and also, the industry did a lot to get water heating declared as an essential business, which we did, and it was a lot of good work by the entire industry to make that happen. But the supply interruptions that manufacturers felt were also felt by our suppliers, and critical parts may have been in short supply, so limiting production is an area that we've all been working on. And then there are the people concerns that COVID has had an effect on, allowing strangers into your homes, difficulty in social distancing, and COVID illnesses among service provider companies. And next are the economic impacts that COVID has had. We've got historically high unemployment, higher than the Great Recession, and it may be higher than the Great Depression before this is all over with. But one other area that COVID has really impacted, at least from REAM's perspective, is our plumber training. In 2019, we trained over 5,000 plumbers at our innovation learning centers. In 2020, however, we expect to train over 16,000 plumbers, mainly online, and as a result, we're significantly changing our approach for a post-COVID future. The next trend is decarbonization. It's a policy, it's a goal. Many of you are involved in these discussions as well. Whether at a state level, a building code level, an incentive rebate level, or reviewing new test procedures. This is happening through various coalitions, NGOs, state regulators, and others. It will result in regional changes that may initially really complicate the marketplace by infusing new technologies that not all are ready for. But that's why it's important to raise and discuss these issues at events like the Hot Water Forum. REAM is trying to really stay ahead of the curve and be involved in all aspects. The next trend is regulations that are driving greener solutions. This industry has always had a lot of regulatory burden from either efficiencies or test procedures, but we see a trend in these regulations are really focusing on greener solutions. Some prime examples are in California, where the web of continually changing regulations driving towards net zero buildings, decarbonization, greenhouse gas reductions, HFC emission reductions, and even specific heat pump water heater sales targets. These regulations will change the industry, and the common products sold and installed will likely rapidly change over the next decade. At REAM, we believe a market exists for these types of innovation solutions, regardless of whether regulations are driving the change. We believe end user benefits like savings on energy bills and other smart features will drive consumer choices. As an example of one of those innovation features, it's our Rheem introduced our ProTerra hybrid electric water heater just a couple months ago in May, and it's consistent with California regulations, but also saves homeowners a lot of money and pays for itself another 2 years. Sustainability is the next trend I'd like to briefly touch on, and it's arguably maybe the flip side of regulations and can be a bigger driving force in affecting greener solutions than regulations. There is a market for sustainability, and environmental stewardship does have a return, but there are trade-offs, and you have to find that right balance. Rheem has done a lot of research on sustainability, and our research has found out that consumers see sustainable and energy efficient as being related but different. So it's important to note those differences. You can't just make something energy efficient and call it sustainable, and you can't just make something sustainable and call it energy efficient. So that's a balance that we all have to find. Our research also showed that a strong majority of homeowners are likely to purchase a sustainability product in the future, so that's good news. They are also willing to pay more, but it's limited. They are not willing to pay a huge premium for extreme sustainability. So to that end, Rheem has made a sustainability pledge. You can find this on our website, and it our goals all culminate around our 100th birthday, which is in 2025. And so we are committed to a 50% reduction in greenhouse gas footprint from our products, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 50% and achieve a zero waste to landfill in all of our global manufacturing facilities. And we are also committed to training 250,000 plumbers, contractors, and key influencers on sustainable products, sustainable installation, and recycling best practices. The next trend I'll talk about is our IoT and smart products. This is a buzzword that we've heard about for several years, but it really continues to advance and evolve. Even in an unappreciated product like a water heater, there are benefits to smart. There's really little value to change the temperature set point by 1 degree on a 50-gallon tank of water when you're controlling the temperature at the faucet or the shower head anyway. However, smart features like maintenance alerts, leak detection and shut off, demand response, scheduling around peak pricing, those are smart ideas in water heaters that can provide a lot of value. And finally, the last trend I'm going to talk about is innovation. I would say that long gone are the days when homeowners or their plumbers decided between nearly identical products where the only differences were the brand and the length of warranty. New technologies, tankless, maybe that's not so new, but hybrid products, solar and others are really starting to gain traction. Smart ways are emerging to solve long-term products like not having enough hot water. An example would be Rheem's Tank Booster, which sits on top of a traditional storage tank. It incorporates electric tankless technology and can deliver up to 45% more hot water than the tank alone. With all of the new product innovations, it's a lot, though, for a plumber to know and understand, especially since the average age of a master plumber is 58 years old. So they learned the ropes 30 or 40 years ago. So to be successful and to affect real change, brands need to not only provide smart solutions, but help homeowners and plumbers select what that right solution is for that installation. Rheem is committed to innovation as a core technology and to helping to transform the plumbing industry to adopt these new technologies, which may even require new business models for plumbers. So with that, I will wrap up and wish you all a very successful hot water forum, and we look really forward to hopefully seeing everyone in person next year. Thanks. Turn it back to you, Chris.
Great. Thank you, Karen. Appreciate that. Now I'd like to introduce Josh Green, Vice President of Government and Industry Affairs at A.O. Smith.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks to everyone that is joining us today. It's a pleasure for A.O. Smith to once again be a platinum sponsor of the Hot Water Forum alongside of our good friends at Rheem. And Karen, thank you for your remarks. As we kind of push forward here. Obviously, we're in a virtual environment, as you can see. I'm broadcasting from the USS Josh Green home office. But we certainly want to wish everyone in Atlanta to be safe, and their families safe and sound, and to stay healthy, as well as all of you that are joining us today at the Hot Water Forum. We certainly look forward to seeing everyone in person next year in Atlanta. I assume we're going to head back there, so looking forward to that. ACEEE and our partnership, and big thank yous. Certainly A.O. Smith wants to extend a happy 40th to ACEEE as well. And Chris and Lynn and the team at ACEEE have done a tremendous amount of work in a short period of time to bring the Hot Water Forum virtually to us all. And if we were here in person together, we won't have to do the Zoom virtual clap, which, you know, waving and signing off on Zoom meetings these days seems to be the norm. But our partnership with ACEEE spans decades, even at the first Hot Water Forum and bringing it to today. But trust, collaboration, thought leadership with ACEEE and all of the allies has been a tremendous asset, not only for our industry, but also for the country. Along those lines, one of the things we wanted to hone in on today, and given the times in which we are in, is coming back to A.O. Smith's values and our guiding principles, which have steered us for growing on 147 years. And these were handed down to us by the Smith family. And while you can read those on the screen, I won't read through them all. The last one is very important to A.O. Smith, and that's being a good citizen. And at these times in our country and around the world, that is a core value that we take very seriously. And it's a time in which corporations and do their part to bring us all together, as well as making sure that we're looking out into the future. This is important, and I know and hope and appreciate that those of you who are joining us at the Hot Water Forum share that view as well. Finally, and we apologize related to that map. It's probably a little small for those of you who are on laptops, iPads, and perhaps not a big monitor. But very similar to Karen's remarks about decarbonization, IoT, those buzzwords, as well as the goals that ACEEE has set out relating to the built environment and carbon footprint moreover. We're spending a lot of time, as are many in industry, with a variety of stakeholders across the United States as it relates to decarbonization in the built environment and what that will mean, not only for our industry, but many others. And as you can see in the map, there's a lot of activity happening across the United States, both at the state level. And for those of you who are straining, those little orange dots are cities across the United States that are either in the process of enacting, are set to enact, or are moving forward on their own decarbonization and climate change goals. Water heating continues to be one of the focal points in all of those different jurisdictions, both at the state and local level. And it's going to take partnership, collaboration, data sharing, best practices, not only across industry, but a variety of stakeholders, and that includes all of you. One of the things that A.O. Smith has prided itself in is being able to work with not only our competitors and an industry, a variety of stakeholders across many different platforms, many different technologies, and we're all in this together in some way, shape, or form. And finally, on decarbonization and IoT, like us, I think there are a lot of others that recognize that these are trends, and as Karen alluded to, trends that are going to be with us for some time. This was a point emphasized actually at AHR, the expo, those of you who may have attended this year. And we're getting ready for that, preparing for that. On all different kinds of levels. And we very much look forward to working with all of you as we move forward as an industry, as a nation. And similar to Karen, we also want to wish everyone a great hot water forum. Stay safe and healthy wherever you are. And like always, A.O. Smith is here as a resource to collaborate and work with you moving forward on some of the most pressing issues that are impacting our industry. So with that, Chris, ACEEE, thank you once again for having us, and I'll turn it back over to you, Chris.
Great. Thanks so much, Josh and Karen. Again, we really appreciate your support of the Hot Water Forum. Thanks for the nice welcomes. So now we're going to turn over to our plenary panel discussion. I will be turning this over to Megan Geis. She's a Policy Associate for Water Efficiency at the Appliance Standards Awareness Project, or ASAP. And she will be leading the plenary discussion and moderating it. Before I did that, I did want to give everybody an indication that there might be a slight Georgia or Atlanta bias in the plenary. So this plenary is mostly the same speakers that we had been planning to have in Atlanta. And two of them are actually from the Atlanta area. So you might get more of that perspective. And the reason for that is we were really excited to have them come share their perspectives in person, and we didn't want to lose them as speakers. So we said, will you please do this for the virtual conference? So yeah, we're really excited for this plenary discussion. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Megan.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks, Josh and Karen, and thank you all for attending the 2020 Hot Water Forum. Today's plenary panel topic is making efficient water accessible for everyone. My name is Megan Geis. I'm a Policy Associate with the Appliance Standards Awareness Project. Today we have on a stage, Alice Rosenberg, Senior Program Manager at the Consortium for Energy Efficiency. Alice leads the residential sector at CEE and oversees residential water heating committee activities. Chip Green, president of Green and Associates Incorporated, owns his own contracting business and is the former president of the Plumbing Heating Contractors Association. Chip has more than 30 years of experience in the industry. And also we'll have Matt Cox, a CEO and founder of GreenLink Analytics, who helped develop their Athenia model. Matt has a doctorate in public policy and has been an author on more than 50 publications. This past year, ACEE's Halfway There report found that after instituting load shifting policies, the electrification of space and water heating can prevent the release of up to 76 million metric tons of carbon dioxide annually. Efficient faucets and shower heads provide significant energy savings as well, in addition to water savings by reducing the amount of hot water used. Efficient water use also conserves secondary energy use by reducing the amount of pumping and treatment that goes into water delivery. Given the benefits of water efficiency, how do we best approach the upgrades that are necessary to achieve these benefits? How can we make sure that all consumers, including low-income consumers, are able to reap the benefits of efficiency and, where cost-effective, electrification? What are the challenges that installers and engineers face when trying to develop systems that are both efficient and useful? Our panelists will open with a short discussion of their work in hot water efficiency, and we'll have some moderated questions after that, and then we'll open up for a short Q&A. With that, let me welcome Matt Cox to share his slides.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Megan, and thanks to Chris and ACEEE for the invitation to talk with everyone today. I'm looking forward to a vibrant back and forth here as we go through our conversation. GreenLink, just a little background on us. We're a clean energy policy research nonprofit. We're based in Atlanta. We work at the city and the state level to bring about a clean energy transition as fast and fair as possible. We're currently working with 75 cities across more than 20 states on topics ranging from equity evaluations and how to improve democratic processes to 100% clean energy planning and utility engagement strategies. We've developed over 30 software models to help bring accurate data to these issues, which has been a problem historically. At the city level in particular, we regularly see cities trying to make decisions with data that's off by more than 33%. Our Athenia model, which Megan mentioned, is one example of that work, which uses deep learning artificial intelligence techniques to create digital twins of cities and regions to help them envision various energy futures, exploring the impacts of policy and program choices on cost, on public health, equity, and job creation. So we get a lot of questions about what, but as a policy-focused organization, we try to spend a lot of our time turning from what to how, and believe that the values of the public are critical to answering that question. So we'll talk a bit about Atlanta's 100% clean energy plan here. In developing that plan, our team ultimately engaged over 4,000 members of the public, making it the most participatory plan in the city's history up till that point. Through dozens of conversations, surveys, town halls, and meetings, we discovered these 3 priorities of Atlanta citizens, which you can see on the slide. Number 1, improve energy equity. Number 2, efficiency investments must be increased. And 3rd, prioritize investments in local renewables over other options. And I think you could say that the 2nd and the 3rd priorities are really just clarifications on the first one. While residents were extremely supportive of the 100% goal, people recognized that the current costs and benefits of energy use were not evenly distributed. Scenario 3, which is what's presented in the bar with all the numbers underneath it there, was the most popular path forward across the city to achieving the goal, which in addition to being very cost effective, and you can see it's almost a 21-to-1 benefit cost ratio, it put a heavy emphasis on energy efficiency. And if you squint close enough there, you'll see that the sum of single-family, multifamily, and commercial energy efficiency represents 37% of the total clean energy pie. If we unpack those efficiency blocks a bit, water heating options represent about 4% of that total. We identified dozens of energy savings opportunities that apply throughout Atlanta's commercial and residential building stock. I'm sure it will come as no surprise to this crowd that heat pump water heaters were in the top half of that set, with an opportunity to reduce electricity bills in homes by up to 10%. So moving to the next slide. Another area where we have tried to bring more light to this conversation is energy equity, where we have developed software that allows us to explore 20 equity indicators across 75,000 neighborhoods in the United States. The indicator that we're asked about the most is energy burden, which is the percent of income spent on energy bills. We regularly work with cities where the energy burden in the hardest hit neighborhoods is 15 times higher than the least burdened neighborhoods, highlighting the inequitable distribution of energy costs. In Atlanta, kind of infamously around here, the most unequal city in America for 4 years running, that spread is 17x, and those results are tightly correlated with race. the median energy burden in a Black neighborhood in South Atlanta is 6 times greater than the national average. The highest median energy burden in any predominantly white neighborhood is 1.5 times the national average. So massive deployment of energy efficiency with a focus on improving the equity of this situation showed us that we can bring the energy burden down below the national average in all but 3 zip codes. So that's comparing that left map to the map on the right. And those 3 zip codes where we're not quite able to get it below the national average will still see their energy burdens essentially cut in half. Since utility bills are the #1 reason that people use short-term loan products, think payday loans, and a full third of households in the US reported skipping meals or filling prescriptions to pay utility bills, the improvement to the quality of life of people from these efforts is no joke. And that's before considering the employment and economic development opportunities presented here as well. That's why energy efficiency plays such a big role in Atlanta's plans. And with water heating efficiency opportunities ranking in the top 10 from literally hundreds of technologies that we reviewed, there's a deserving focus on this in Atlanta and many other cities across the country. So with that, I will pass it over to Alice.
Thank you very much, Matt. Alice?
All right. Thank you. I'll just go ahead and dive right in. So hi, everyone. I'm Alice Rosenberg. I'm the non-Atlantan in the group, if that is even the correct term. I'm with Consortium for Energy Efficiency, and we are a nonprofit of energy efficiency utilities and other ratepayer-funded program administrators across the U.S. and Canada. So I wanted to share some of the things that we're seeing in the water heating space, specifically with respect to this topic of making efficient water systems accessible to all. I'd say we're seeing, at large across the residential and C&I portfolios of our members, an increase in the importance of water heating relative to the broader portfolios of offerings for a couple different reasons. It's always been important, but we're seeing other measures like lighting becoming a diminishing part of those portfolios because of increased federal standards and technological increases. So to other products, water heating is becoming increasingly promising as an energy savings resource. There's also a lot of really exciting technology going on that's enabling greater energy savings, both for traditional efficiency as well as demand response, which we'll talk about in a little bit, gas and electric heat pumps and other types of equipment combinations. And then we're seeing a lot of promising opportunities for water heating to play in the integrated demand side management space. So demand response, load management, it's a really exciting load for that. And then I also just wanted to mention that within sectors, there's a continued attention towards really using programs in a way that segments customers and really identifies their needs, their place. And so when we're talking about making efficient water systems accessible to all, from a program perspective, a lot of that has to do with being able to really target the right groups in the right ways. So leveraging data in a way that really helps get at these customer bases that traditionally have been difficult to reach or might have barriers that are hard to overcome. All right, looking at what our members are doing, it is very common for utilities to run low-income programs. Programs are separate standalone offerings that are different from the market rate programs. They are most often defined by some form of eligibility, usually based on income levels, although there really are a variety of different ways that they are described. And then most of them, what they do is they leverage direct install as a mechanism to employ prescriptive type programs. So instead of a performance-based, it might be a menu of upgrades of which water heating is typically included. Not one of the most common measures, but certainly seeing many of them offering water heating. I'm standing in for my colleague who's part of Energize program, and so I'm going to just kind of walk through what their low-income program offers. Got it. So their low-income program is very typical. What they've done recently, and there's a lot of information actually last year from one of the sessions on this, is a special heat pump water heater pilot. And this is pretty exciting. Energize Connecticut was really looking at ways to demonstrate and make accessible to their low-income customers a Wi-Fi Energy Star heat pump water heater that would be at no cost to the consumer. So they're looking currently to encapsulate this into their full-blown program, but what they were trying to do is find a way for customers to have no payment up front, use entirely the contractors that UI provided. They did all the installation, all the warranty, the materials, all that cost, there's no expense to the consumer, and customers could enroll in the demand response program. What they did is they evaluated 108 homes. They had a whole series of ways to evaluate. 65 of them were eligible and got the heat pump water heaters. I don't know what the savings actually are, but UI and the statewide program is looking to sort of streamline some of the costs here and make it part of their full-blown program. So that's just a really exciting program that they're working on, and there's more information available if anyone wants to learn a little bit more details about that. This was their slide. I guess they kind of switched order, just talking about their general low-income program. This is their broader program, of which water heating is one. I don't need to go into detail of that, but this is the program that pilot that was worked on is feeding into. And then the last slide I wanted to mention when it comes to efficiency programs and what a lot of our members are trying to do, this project we're working on in conjunction with the IEA is identifying hard to reach customers. And so low income is certainly one, but in trying to identify what these different audiences is, parsing out very specifically what kind of consumer you're looking at is a really important first step, because when you look at the barriers to adoption and why these groups are so hard to reach, although many are common, cost is a very common barrier, competing priorities is very common, you'll notice that a lot of the barriers really are very specific to different audiences. And so things like language barrier, that might not be an issue for a low income, but it might be a huge one for a non-native speaker. And so this project I think is really interesting because it gets at the point I mentioned at the beginning, which is that segmentation and targeting and customization are an increasingly important tool within the program administrator toolkit. And with COVID and needing to be at home and not access folks in a real world, but having to do it virtually is certainly a lot harder. But you're able to capitalize on a lot of opportunities around data layering and being able to take information about unique customers, leverage that, and maybe change up your marketing plans or your program design in a response to that. And so last slide and sort of food for thought, but in looking again at the program landscape, just a big trend that we're seeing here is the ways of taking information about customers and using that to really make programs more accessible to everyone and more customized and hopefully gain a lot more uptake. So with that, I will turn it back over.
Thank you very much, Alice. Next, we will have Chip present some slides.
Okay, thank you. So we're the contractor of the bunch here, and we get the privilege to put in these products from folks like Ream and A.O. Smith. So we're a commercial contractor based in Central Georgia. We focus on some of the larger commercial markets, K-12, higher ed, and medical. And as they mentioned in my introduction, I've been doing this full-time for 36 years and the last 30 as a business owner. And prior to that, I'm actually a third generation of being in the industry. My father was a mechanical contractor for about 35 years, having his own business, and then glad to have the heritage. My grandfather was a plumber and a steam fitter back in the early 20s and 30s, so up to probably the late 50s. So proud family heritage. So we talk about going green, and this slide is kind of comical, but it reflects what we see a lot. People talk about going green, and they like that idea, but just like everything else, there's a cost associated with it. And I think we see a lot of times that people like the idea, but they don't like the idea of spending the dollar. So it's a balance, and to an extent, it's driven by doing application. So they like the idea of perhaps putting in a tankless water heater in their home, and they feel like that it provides a lot of benefits that, for instance, endless hot water that they don't have to worry about. They have 6 teenagers at home that all take showers for 15 and 20 minutes, then they don't ever have to worry about running out of hot water, which you have with a tank heater. But then again, if you talk to someone about, putting a feature on there that perhaps would tie to their Wi-Fi in their house that they can monitor, it just depends. A more sophisticated owner might warm up to that. Another owner that just says, I'm not keeping up with all that stuff. I just want the equipment to work. So that's the challenge that we see trying to put in new products. The trends that we see for commercial installation, it really depends on the application. If this is just for hand washing or a very light demand for hot water, then we're seeing either electric tank heaters or point of use heaters, especially a single restroom with just for like a small office or something like that. You're going to have a hard time convincing them to spend just as a number, twice as much on the initial cost for a product that, they in no way can see, their way clear to how they'll pay for it, or how it will pay for itself, I should say. But then you get high demand installations, and we're seeing, that's where we're seeing high efficiency being looked at. We see like the high efficiency tank heaters, like a Cyclone heater by A.O. Smith or a Triton by Rheem, E-Force, Bradford White. It's very popular in that type of scenario. We've seen tankless heaters being manifolded together to provide the level of hot water demand that they need. And then we still see some, although a lot less than we were seeing, of a boiler storage tank type combination where you have the boiler making hot water and then they store the water until there's a demand. And I think the reason that we're seeing less of that is because I think the efficiency with tank heaters and tankless are progressing as such to where they're able to meet the demand and the technology making it where it takes a smaller footprint, or if you can't do the demand of one heater on a tankless, then you can just add another heater, and they work together seamlessly. So I think that's a lot of the change on that. In a medical surgical type hospital, we see a lot of tankless heaters. Usually, if a facility has steam available, then they like to use tankless heaters that are steam fired, which work very well, produce a lot of hot water really fast. We're able to have conversations with medical facilities about, Legionella and storing hot water at the correct temperature, and how to deal with having the right temperature water at the end user. They're very sensitive to that. They understand that. It's not hard to have those conversations. We can have those conversations in some of the other markets, but the medical surgical is an area where they truly get it and are looking for solutions that keeps them out of that kind of trouble. In the hospitality market, which we don't do a lot of, we see either multiple tank heaters manifolded together, or perhaps tank heaters with extra storage tank, and then we also see some manifolded tankless heaters. So that's kind of what we're seeing as far as trends go for the commercial markets that we focus on. And I'll kick it back to Megan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chip, and thank you all for your presentations. Let me move this slide forward here. So now we'll move on to a moderated panel discussion. And after this, we'll have a short Q&A session. So if you have a question, type it into the question interface for this webinar, and we'll be looking at them and sharing them with the panelists and the listeners at the end. And so now, since we're going to move into the panel discussion, I will ask the first question of Chip. You just sort of enumerated what kinds of hot water heating systems your customers are looking for. So I'm curious, because it's part of the zeitgeist right now, how has your business changed in the last 6 months with the COVID-19 crisis? And have individual customers wanted different things now than before?
So being considered an essential business, we didn't have to close down or do shelter in place or anything like that. But and we run a twofold operation. The biggest part of our business is on the construction and the contracting side, and then we have a service division that probably represents about 5 to 7% of our revenue. And so on the service side, it literally looks like the phone, just like somebody just unplugged the phone one day. And it was really, for 2 or 3 weeks, it was really slow. We weren't getting the calls. We had to put our technicians on a part-time basis. Even our service coordinator had to go on a work from home, working part-time, forwarding the phone to her and that type thing. And then it just seemed to, everybody kind of got back in the groove and things kind of picked back up. So, and now we're back being very busy, struggling to stay caught up with the calls that are coming in, and then, just the type of atmosphere you would anticipate for summertime service. So that's how it's affected us on that side. On the construction side, same thing. We've been very fortunate. We're experiencing a record year in revenue, struggling to find enough people to get the work done. But it's a much different scenario. We have, I mentioned we worked in the healthcare markets. So they've kind of insisted that, we follow the procedures that they follow for their employees. So, we're wearing masks when we're working in those facilities, or even in some cases, we're doing an addition to an existing rehab hospital, and that protocol applies through the addition as well, that we wear a mask. That presents a little bit of a challenge, especially when you're working outdoors, unconditioned spaces, and so that's some of the things that we deal with. The other thing is most of our construction crews consist of a plumbing or a plumber or a mechanic or a pipe fitter, and depending on what it is, and an apprentice. And sometimes they can work, together but separate. And then there's other times that they've got to be, kind of in close quarters. And so that presents a challenge on social distancing and trying to maintain that type thing. And then we've had to put protocols in place about, being exposed to COVID and what they have to do, and, getting the testing done and quarantining and all that type of thing, which also presents a challenge because construction workers tend to have this bulletproof mentality but it's become we've brought it to the forefront and explained to them that it's not just about them, it's about the people that they're working around and other people on the project. And we've had projects that have been shut down because we've had other trades that might have had a worker that was exposed to code and then came on the job site. And so sometimes the job is shut down for a couple of days, sometimes the job is shut down for a week. And I think part of it is that we still haven't quite wrapped our hands around, the impact. What justifies exposure? What is a call to action? What do we just need? What requires more of a wait and see and that type thing. So all of those things have been challenges that we've had to deal with as a company. And then I think the other thing that we've seen is that we've had some clients that have said, we need to get more hands-free on hand washing and that type of thing. So we've installed sensor faucets where they just had, manuals before. And in some cases, it's been a little bit of a challenge, because he said we're not the only ones experiencing this. So our wholesalers and vendors having their ability to keep that product on the shelf or get it readily out of a stocking distributor, it's challenging at times because they might have a run and vendors are all about how quick they can turn something, and if they have a run on it, then that exceeds their normal demand, and they get caught and without the product to sell. So anyway, those are the types of things that we've been experiencing.
And you'll figure out a protocol. I'm going to turn the table now to Alice. Can you tell us a little bit about how utility programs can address energy efficiency through water heating most effectively? And have you noticed if COVID-19 has affected utilities' ability to develop energy efficiency programs or customers' responses to them? I know that's a large question, so I can start at the beginning there, but I'll turn it over to you. Alice?
Most persistent barriers. And for water heating, that's largely about two main things. One is education and conveying information. And the second is about really reducing the incremental cost of making these products available. And that first one has been, one of the most persistent challenges, mostly on the residential side, due to the fact that people really don't know, think, or care about water heating at all. That's a really hard thing to change. And the vast majority of replacements really are emergency purchases. So we see the numbers vary regionally in different areas, but 80 to 90% usually is emergency replacements. And so that's just a really tough scenario. And so utility programs work to try and intervene and play a role there. The second one is really reducing the incremental cost. And we've seen a lot of very innovative ways that programs have partnered with different entities to really make inroads through creative models. There's a lot of sessions every year, including this one at the Hot Water Forum, about these kinds of partnerships along the supply chain and the distribution channels to work together to help make these models more competitive. So midstream programs are definitely one example, and really partnering with others to help make it a lot of an easier market. There are a lot of challenges and a lot of barriers that we're plugging away at, but that's sort of where utilities, especially being this sort of trusted entity that a lot of consumers will go to them first for information they know is credible. As for COVID-19, I wouldn't say it's a mixed blessing, but there are some upsides to it. Obviously, it's been a lot of challenges, and many of our programs have had to just shut down entirely for a set period of time. But we are seeing that as folks can get back into running programs or entering homes and businesses, there are some silver linings. I think a lot of facilities that otherwise would not have wanted to do retrofits and make time to close down to do major upgrades are now seeing this as a time to do it. And so we are seeing things that otherwise would disrupt day-to-day operations. A lot of those are going ahead with some major renovations, which can include water heating. On the residential side, I think one of the nice things about it is that people are home a lot longer, and that can have a lot of positive effects. So one is that they're available to have a contractor or a plumber come by at times that would have been otherwise very inconvenient. They're also spending more time at home, so potentially caring for their environment, their living situation, and just being more aware of their home as a space that they occupy a lot. And so those are sort of two, again, are good. And then the last one being that, although this is not universal, folks are turning towards utility as, again, a source of credible information, entity who can, give them unbiased information about, information relative to their home. So those are kind of my, some of my updates. And again, this is not universal, but, as things roll out, some of the things that we're hearing and seeing.
Yeah. Thank you. And Matt, can you tell us a little bit about the kinds of intra-city differences that Greenlink can see in the efficiency recommendations that it makes? And how does having a public health crisis challenge the analysis that you might do otherwise?
Sure. So when we look at a city, we start by trying to characterize their building stock. We'll produce 120 different building models to capture the variation between residential and commercial building types and age and all those kinds of factors. We'll break that down to get like an hourly demand profile by end use within all of those 120. So there's a lot of work that goes into trying to calibrate what that looks like for each of the cities. And that means that we'll get a picture that looks like downtown in a city is going to look different than the building stock in the in-town neighborhoods, and waves of residential developments are going to impact how all of this stuff plays out. We just did a study for Birmingham, Alabama, and we were looking at the water heating efficiency opportunities across the city, and we're seeing that there was a range, a 6x range, just within their residential sector as to what the model was telling us, you could do and what was going to be cost effective in those different areas. So yeah, depending on where you are, it matters a lot to kind of see what those differences are.
Yeah.
COVID itself shifted the emphasis for us. So when everyone is sheltering at home, the emphasis on the residential sector increases a lot. When we're working with, especially cities in the South, there had been a high tendency to focus on the commercial sector as an area where there's just least cost savings available. So that was understood. There was an emphasis to try to improve that. For most of the past decade, Atlanta had the leading Better Buildings Challenge across the country, for example. And now all of that emphasis is switched over to the residential side. So you're seeing a lot of focus there. And then we're seeing a lot more focus on electrification also as a way to improve indoor air quality, which is especially important with since we're dealing with a respiratory disease. If we have a lot of people that are stuck inside, that becomes more important. Mm-hmm. So the equity problems that are kind of, those also are exacerbated in this situation because people are home more, so their residential bills are going to go up. Mm-hmm. But we see that make the energy efficiency argument that much stronger as well. So yeah, there's a lot of work with utilities actually right now to work on policy and programs and try to help them identify which areas are most in need and make that a priority for them.
Yeah. Can I ask a follow-up question? How long did it take in the sort of unfolding of the crisis to realize that we need to put more emphasis on the residential side?
Not very long. probably about 2 weeks or so. We started to see city staff move on that. And it was within a month that we saw a lot of our utility partners make similar mm-hmm. changes.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I have a question for all of you. From your perspectives, Alice is a program manager, Chip is a contractor, Matt is an energy policy strategist. What kinds of projects do you think help us gain the most ground in terms of reaching water and energy efficiency goals? And I'll just take this in order of the last question. So, Chip, if you do, what kind of projects do you think would help reach those energy efficiency and water efficiency goals?
So we see a lot at state facilities. State facilities are trying to set, I'm gonna call it set the example for trying to be a leader in both energy efficiency, water efficiency. Just about every facility that we do, a university, state office building, whatever it is, hands-free, and of course, by law, Georgia's adopted low flow with fixtures and that type of thing. So 1.28 gallon flush on toilets and that type of thing is that there's no question now. And one thing that's been helpful about that is the manufacturers were able to get ahead of the curve. I experienced the switch from 3.5 gallon to 1.6 gallon when that happened, and that was just kind of like somebody flipped the switch one day, and the transition was very painful. This time, going from 1.6 to 1.28 has been very easy. The same thing with the faucets and the shower heads and everything else. We were already ahead of the curve with the technology and the R&D, so that made the functionality of it go much easier. So, and then the other one place is kitchens, restaurants, anything that uses a lot of hot water. It is not a hard sell to sell something that's got a higher energy efficiency, especially if you can show a payback. And I think that's really the key to it. If you say, well, you can do this particular thing, whether it be, I remember doing a project one time, and the college said, well, we thought about doing solar, but the payback was 20 years. Well, that's a hard sell. But if you can say, well, you can get a payback in 3 to 5 years, then that's not such a hard sell. And so like tankless heaters, high efficiency heaters, anything like that, if there's the demand so that you can show that they can get a payback, then that is where the most opportunity is.
Yeah. Especially restaurants where your margins are already so thin, getting a payback is already a benefit, right?
That's right. And it's all about space. And, small restaurant owners, hasn't got a lot of room for what I would call utility space, so he's trying to keep the leasable space. If he's leasing for somebody, or if he's building his own restaurant, it's all about how many. If I've got a restaurant that's, just pick a number, 5,000 square feet, how much of that 5,000 square feet am I using that's actually producing versus a mechanical room or electrical room or something like that? So if you can say, well, we could bank tankless heaters together to meet the demand, and we could even put them outside, then that also makes it easier because that way he's not having to dedicate lost revenue space to have that. So.
Help us gain the most ground in energy and water efficiency.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of the question.
Oh, sorry, I'm moving. This part is for Alice.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry, no. Is there? I think there might be a delay. Alice, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear okay?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm hearing a little. It goes out a little bit.
All right.
Anyway, so what are the types of programs that would help us gain the most ground in energy and water efficiency at this point?
Yeah. And CEE is a binational organization, so individually our members, each do their own thing. We really work collectively to bring those all together and leverage the shared community. And so my answer is market transformation, which really focuses not just on addressing one immediate short-term problem, but is trying to really move the market long-term. And again, that's how we're founded, and by our members all coming together. The idea is you want to see things stocked differently. You want to see efficient models readily available. And so working in that capacity to see lasting change is where we hope to really, again, move the needles to efficiency gains and water.
Yeah. So working on sort of all sides of the equation to make sure the market transforms the way it needs to is your modus operandi there.
Yep.
Matt, can I ask you as a strategist, what would make energy efficiency happen most quickly for all of us?
Financial policies that help create a market signal. So not really too much different, I think, than where Alice was going there. But I think if we have that to the suppliers of equipment, so we have high efficient equipment ready to go, and to the customers so that, when it's needed, it's an option. Can't think of too many situations where you lose hot water and decide that it's okay to just tough it out. So we just need to have everything ready to go when it's go time.
Yeah, hot water is pretty inelastic for most residential customers. So I'm going to move on to a second round of questions here. New technologies. I'm going to go to Alice first. Alice, can you talk a little bit about what program administrators are most excited about these days in terms of cutting edge water heating technologies, demand response? What's cutting edge to you right now?
Yeah, and so the backdrop here is that obviously we want increased energy efficiency, but on top of that, not just pure kilowatt hour saving are becoming so critical to utilities across the country. And so this integrated demand side management and the savings we're trying to claim through that become. And so with that lens and wanting to know when and where, a lot of the excitement is definitely around connected. Water heating is a fantastic candidate for load management ability. It's a large load, both in residential and C&I. Utilities are just excited about water heating and its potential to meet those IDSM needs. So for sure, everything around demand response is pretty exciting, and we're anticipating to see a lot more growth in that over the coming years. In addition, some of the other benefits of connectivity that Karen actually spoke to a little bit earlier are possibly very exciting as well. So being able to have enhanced consumer fault detection, leaks, diagnostics, portals for contractors and plumbers, and being able to use energy and water wisely capabilities is pretty exciting. I don't think we know for sure exactly what the savings are in those spaces, but interested in sort of seeing how those evolve, and they might interesting applications for both the the products themselves, but also this broader integrated home or automated building as an entire system. And then of course as well, separate from connected, that I think we're really excited about. Gas heat pumps, certainly combi units, commercial heat pump water heaters, and system design are some of the ones that come to mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. With some of that connected stuff, it's like the potential is there, and like maybe more study needs to be done to make sure that you can see the savings or translate that savings to a policy level. Am I right there? Okay, cool.
Yeah,
great.
To work.
Yeah. I'm going to turn to Matt. Matt, can you go into a little bit more detail about your approach to making decarbonization policy recommendations to cities? What about for cities considering electrification policies? How do you approach a city when you're talking?
Yeah, so we're working with, half a dozen cities on 100% clean energy or decarbonization policies, or, well, in one case, both. Given the way that their councils have identified those targets. I think decarbonization is a tricky subject. It requires a lot of detailed work to do it right. And And it also requires the cities to start to work in multiple directions. So like they'll need to reach down to their grassroots. And at the same time, they have to reach up to the state level for a lot of things, because many of them are dealing with investor-owned utilities that aren't regulated by the city. So they'll have to figure out how do they engage with public service commissions, those kinds of the state legislature, the governor's office, those kinds of connections become more important. At the same time, a lot of cities have been more used to ignoring their grassroots and trying to avoid getting noticed by their states. So this is a total change in position for them. So a bit of a mindset shift that has to go on. But once we lay that groundwork, we can start to look at the ways that carbon is produced within a city. So in most cases, what we find is that if you look at buildings and transportation, that's more than 90% of the carbon footprint for most cities. And so you spend a lot of time on those areas, trying to increase efficiency, reduce vehicle miles traveled, generally shifting towards electricity. Some have jumped from shifting to electricity to the solution is electrify everything. So, and while that's probably true in the long run, barring something like a hydrogen revolution or something like it, our numbers are showing that a mass move to electricity now for a lot of cities would lead to an increase in CO2 emissions. And that's true for Atlanta, but that's also true for Chicago. I mean, there's a lot of places we can look where that's going to be the case at the moment. And so, there's going to be an inflection point where full electrification is going to make sense, as long as the grid keeps cleaning up, and most indications are that it will. And we need that change to happen faster. But a gas ban, which is what you've seen in a lot of parts of California, if that's just picked up in a lot of parts of the country, that would not be a smart climate policy. We'd see higher CO2 emissions as a result of that.
So it sounds like on a policy level, time is a big variable, and how quickly a city or a state is gonna move towards that.
That's a lot of what we're identifying. Yeah. Is like, there's stuff you can do with new construction, building codes that may make more sense to move faster towards that electrify everything solution. Whereas when we're looking at existing buildings, figuring out how you approach that and when it makes sense to just say, all right, now it's time.
Right.
There's a lot more math involved to that, and you have to be more strategic in that application.
Right. I'm going to move to Chip really quickly here. So Chip, a major topic we discuss at Hot Water Forum is best practices for designing efficient hot water systems, including plumbing and plumbing fixtures. Can you share any experiences from the field if the plumbing systems are being designed efficiently? Just how designing those systems it takes into account efficiency. I'm sorry.
There tends to be a risk aversion is what we see. For instance, if you've got a school and it's got 4 science labs in it, and each science lab's got, 6, 8, 10 sinks in it, and they've all got hot and cold water going to them. And then you've got some miscellaneous other fixtures around in the building. The trend of design is where we're just going to size the hot waters, the heaters to be based on if we had everything at full flow. Well, that's really not doing the owner of a service, because we all know how those facilities are used. Intermittent. They're conducting a science experiment. Those sinks might run 5 or 10 minutes out of a 1 hour class period and that type of thing. So the practicality of the way it's going to be used versus the traditional design, I think, gets overlooked a lot of times. Then the other thing that we see is when systems have circulating pumps on them, you're able to get the water, warmer water back faster to the tank. So therefore, instead of, say, 100-degree rise size of tank, that you're really only looking at an average of, say, 50 degrees at worst case. And so the amount of hot water that you can be delivered, not having to, that you're heating water from 85 or 90 degrees versus you're heating water at 60 degrees, or makes a big difference. And we don't see that taken into account either. So, and it really, the person it impacts is the end user, because they spend money that they didn't necessarily have to spend, and they also have, if you've got a tank water heater and it's electric and it's saying it's got 24 kW in it and it's trying to maintain the water temperature of the tank all the time, that's an incredible expense that perhaps didn't need to be incurred. So that's kind of what we see from a design standpoint.
Okay. I'm going to actually start asking a couple of audience questions because we've gotten a few now. Chip, I'm going to start with you, actually. We have a question from Mitsubishi Electric, and they ask, do you think that in the residential sector, considering the increased awareness towards a healthier lifestyle, there might be more inclination towards tankless water heaters? Do you see health consciousness and tankless water heaters connected by customers?
We do. The only challenge that we see with tankless heaters is when the house is total electric, and it's just a challenge about how to figure out if you've got a 200 amp service that feeds or 200 amp panel that feeds that house, and you have to allocate 100 amps for a tankless heater if it's electric, then that gets to be a little bit of a challenge. But on using gas tankless heaters, it's not a hard sell, especially if they have multiple people in the house and they get frustrated with not having enough hot water for everybody to take a shower. So it's a pretty easy sell, and for the most part, people love them once they get them. So that's the other part, is they can ask their friends and they say, I'm thinking about a tankless heater, and they go, oh, we've got one and we love it. So that's what we see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm actually gonna ask a question for Matt from Ariston Thermo USA. Brian Pickett. With Matt's acknowledgement that a rush to electrification could lead to higher CO2 emissions, why aren't we seeing more support from energy efficiency advocates for high efficiency condensing gas-fired water heaters?
I think it's primarily that we see a lot of support for heat pump water heaters as the efficient answer there. But if we're looking at gas that's already deployed on site, then you do see opportunities for improving the efficiency of gas. It just becomes a balancing act where we're looking at the lifetime of any sort of new equipment or improvements that we might make, the lifetime of the building. So how's the building stock turnover going to move here? And then it's a comparative analysis also, where you're looking at what's happening with the carbon intensity at the power supply relative to the carbon intensity that we would see out of gas use, and overall the efficiency of those units. So you have to come back around and do like the full life cycle assessment against it to see whether that's going to be the choice that's going to make the most sense for a certain number of users. And so that's kind of the analysis that goes forward. It's not to say that this doesn't get looked at, but I think it doesn't get spoken about as much because it's maybe not quite as flashy as what you'd see, or it's not the kind of go-to that we would see with the heat pump solution.
I see. I have a question for Chip here from Scott Isaacson. Has customer water heater product selection changed since COVID? What products are you seeing more and less of over the last 5 months?
I haven't seen any significant changes, other than just to make it, people want to make sure that they're working and they're working properly. So I would say that's probably the main emphasis is there's no, well, it doesn't seem to be working just right. This, that, the other. It's got to be working and it's got to be working right. And that's really the only thing that we've seen.
Sorry, let me get caught up here on these. I have a question to Matt from Altus Thermal. How are you assessing methane emissions in this analysis?
Yeah, so it's through, well, the short answer is it's through CO2 equivalents to get towards that. I think the person asking is probably aware that that's a contentious question around like what kind of leakage are you seeing from right at the well all the way up to the point of delivery. And I don't think we've got great information around that, especially not nationwide, but we can use some factors that have been generally published from federal government and academia to try to come up with a ballpark figure of what being connected to the gas grid you'd expect to see as far as methane leakages on the way to the customer. So we're generally seeing something around like a 3% value being utilized. And right in that level, it starts to be a break-even kind of calculation with some of the other more carbon-intensive energy sources. So clamping down on that would be a major benefit.
I see. Yeah, I just want to break in here really quickly because we have 1 more minute left before our time is up here. And I want to ask Alice one quick question. Earlier, Alice showed that the low-income group is one of the hardest to reach groups for energy and water efficiency. What is the main barrier and what are the potential solutions for reaching households?
Yeah, I will have to go back and look at that data. So the barriers, depending on who you're talking to, for program administrators who are answering this, I think the largest one was cost, particularly incremental cost. I think another one of the high ones for the low income was, let's see, what were some of them? I think an issue of reliable information. The various ones associated with cost were all up there as well. And then just access was another one. I know, things like Wi-Fi or having the right channels to communicate with them were high. I can look up more details on that, but I know for sure different things having to do with cost were the highest.
Great. Thank you all so much. We're out of time here. Chris, if there's anything else I need to add, thank you, Alice, Chip, and Matt. You guys have been great. Chris, I'm going to hand this back to you.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Megan. Thank you for running that. Thank you to our speakers. I just want to leave on this slide. These are our upcoming conferences. Be sure to join us next month for our summer study, which will also be virtual. And our first session starts in 15 minutes. So hope you all enjoy the conference. And thanks again.